Welcome to It's a Love Thang, and I am Lady Rhonda, and I am so excited to have my pretty guest in her red today and her elephant on her chest. I'm going to let her introduce herself in a moment. But today's episode will be You Hurt Me, Now What? We talk a lot about church hurt. We have coined it to be a phrase. And I don't want to dwell on the church hurt, but I do want to debunk it just a little bit. And my view on it, which is my personal view, is that the church necessarily didn't hurt you, but it was people in the church that hurt you. Now, people would say, well, it's still church hurt because people in the church hurt you, whatever, but to be hurt in the church or get hurt in the church and then you jump from church to church to church and you bring your hurt, your trauma or whatever from church to church. To me, I would say church hurt, let's stop using that term per se. Let's say I was hurt by someone in the church. Now what? How am I supposed to handle that? How am I supposed to deal with that? How am I supposed to live with it? And what it looks like and what the healing process looks like. So with that being said, I want this beautiful lady to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are.
Well, I'm first of all very happy to be here.
Thank you for
and
coming.
to have been asked to participate. I am Gina Whitaker Cannon, and I am a licensed ordained minister. I'm the founder of GWC Ministries, and it is a ministry which was formed out of my brokenness. The ministry serves to help people to realize that we may be bruised but not broken, that we can move on in the midst of. And I also serve as the assistant pastor at Grayland Baptist Church, where the pastor is Bishop Dexter Cannon. I say that very lightly. I'm not actively serving as assistant pastor, and we can get to that later.
Okay.
But I am very active with my ministry right now, have been since before the pandemic, more so during the pandemic, to make sure that I was embracing people who were outside of church because we couldn't go to church.
Right.
So I became more active with my ministry, doing things virtually and in person in my yard, actually.
Okay.
So my dad always wanted me to pastor, and I told him pastoring wasn't for me. And he said, well, you didn't pray, you didn't ask God. I did pray. Well, you didn't wait for him to answer. This was this ongoing discussion we had. But I saw so much growing up with my grandfather pastoring, my dad pastoring. Didn't want any parts of it.
So you were the PK.
I was the PK, and I was just like, no, I'm good. So, but I'm told, people say, well, you're pastoring now, you're doing pastor's work. Maybe so,
Right.
you know. So I still do a lot of evangelizing, reaching out, trying to help people. If I see someone and I feel like they're lost, I use that term very loosely, because I don't mean they don't know where to go, but they don't know where to go.
Right.
But I try to be that person, that comfort for them, and to show them the way to go. That's just kind of the way I live my life. My motto is others rather than self. It's been that. When I came up with that motto, I was like 13 or 14. My parents were like, what is this child talking about, others rather than self? I knew what I was talking about because I had a relationship with God that my peers didn't have at that age.
So should I call you? I want to be respectful. Are you Minister Cannon?
I'm Reverend Cannon,
Reverend,
Pastor
Pastor.
Gina, Reverend G, Lady G. Most people call me Lady G.
Lady G,
Or
okay.
Pastor G. It doesn't. Gina is really fine with me,
Okay.
but whatever you decide is fine.
So basically, you kind of just answered the question about how long you have been in ministry. So basically, you can say you grew up in it.
I grew up in ministry. I finally accepted the call to ministry
Okay.
in 2008.
Okay.
It was on Mother's Day. And I believe possibly the Lord had been calling me but I was like, and my biggest concern, Lady Rhonda, was I was a comedian.
You are.
Yeah. I'm a Christian comedian now.
Oh.
I wasn't then. My concern was that I wouldn't be able to curse anymore. That's my truth.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh God, I don't know. Can I do this? And the Lord has the best sense of humor ever and showed me. So I'm doing Christian comedy now. I've been doing it
Really?
ever since. I got a show coming up in August, yeah. So I was able to still be funny and not use profane language. That was my biggest concern because I knew that kept my audience. And it was my side hustle, you know. So I was like, I'm not giving that up to preach. But
so where do you get your material?
I make it up.
You make it up?
I do. It's us. A lot of things are about my family.
Oh, okay.
So they laugh uncontrollably because they know it's them.
Right.
Nobody else. I protect the names.
Okay.
I don't say names. And a lot of things I make up. I see other comedians, but I'm very careful not to use material from other comedians.
I see.
But yeah.
So you were a pastor's wife.
I was.
So tell us a little
pastor's
bit about
wife.
that.
It was interesting because living in the house, dealing with my dad, seeing my mom hurt over and over again because women are so disrespectful. And I don't even know where to begin to tell you the things that I saw happen. And I just would be so, and I'd look at my dad like, why are you allowing this to happen? But what I learned, it had nothing to do with him in a lot of instances. They just wanted to see her hurt because they wanted to be in her position.
Wow.
So they were very cruel. She didn't do anything to anybody, but I saw her sit and endure that stuff. And so I became her when I became a pastor's wife. Whether I was happy, whether I was content, whether I was disgruntled, I still hung in there. I did what I needed to do. I wanted to see my husband's ministry flourish. I wanted to be the best me I could be. I wanted to always be supportive. And he left the church he was at originally and planted a church. So we went in there, and then the next thing I know, my dad was about to retire, and here were the people at the church calling him to ask him to be the pastor of the church. I was like, no.
Was he a pastor before?
He was a pastor
He was
before.
A pastor, okay.
He planted a church, and here they were asking him to be the pastor of this church. Well, they had asked me, and I told them no, but I served as transitional pastor to help them through.
After your father?
After my father retired.
Okay.
And I was like, I just don't think, but here again, it's my husband, he was the head. If you feel like God is pulling you to this, okay. Personally, I think it was the worst mistake we ever made, was to go there as pastor and first lady. I don't feel we were ever acknowledged as pastor and first lady because of the allegiance to my parents. And when I say that, this may be small to some people, but it was as simple as there were times that we had dinner at church. So we were in sanctuary greeting people, speaking, and by the time we went over, it was like, oh, y'all didn't eat. When I know when my parents were pastor and first lady, there was a table, and they had food set aside and food packed, and I even saw them pack food for my mother and father, and we were just kind of.
So you all weren't respected as the pastor and first lady?
In name. And sometimes they weren't mean to us, but I honestly think they did it not even realizing what was happening. I've been there since I was 17. So here I am now. My dad passed for 30-some years, so I still didn't become Reverend Gina or Reverend Whitaker Cannon to anybody. I was still Gina. I had to always deal with that, with what they would call me, and finally I gave up. My husband was very adamant. Listen, she is this, and he had them calling me, actually had them call me Elder Cannon.
Okay.
I never really understood, but I followed, because that's what he said when he became bishop. I became elder. Honestly, still don't have a great understanding of it, It was never really explained to me, but I followed suit. I think that I don't have anything bad to say about my ex-husband. I think we weren't irreconcilable differences. We just couldn't get along. But we decided that when we separated, we would work together in the church. And we tried it. I was the administrative assistant. Whenever a musician left, I stepped back in and directed the choir. Whatever was needed, I did it at the church. But I never felt appreciated. That was my thing I dealt with. I didn't share it. I just internalized it.
Right.
So it's what I watched my mother do. Things happened. I knew she was hurt. She didn't bother. So I've watched this stuff all my life. And then once I became a minister's wife, I joined an organization that I had no interest in joining, the Ministers' Wives and Widows.
Mm-hmm.
My mother was a member. Oh, she was elated that I became a part of this. Well, Gina's going to travel with me. Well, Gina can do this. And I became part of the organization. Well, it didn't even occur to me when I became a part, went to the international convention. I became a part of the faculty. I was a teacher. I became the international music director.
Mm-hmm.
I was the president of the local chapter. I was really active in the organization. But when I separated from my husband, they were waiting for me to leave. Because once you are no longer married, you have to leave the organization. So you leave after your divorce is final, then you can be a member until the end of that year. Mine came a little sooner because there were some people who heard I was separated and said, well, she's divorced, and caused a big stink. Not with me, but it affected my mother. And that's what bothered me more than anything, that she was affected by it. I didn't like the way I was treated, but here's my thing, and I say this for the organization, for anyone who may hear this. You have to have a plan in place.
Right.
Because the pastors separate from their wives, but they remain a part of the minister's conference.
Right.
But the minister's wife, you're no longer a minister's wife, so what do? I had a life before I became a pastor's wife. I knew people, I did things. Some of these ladies, this is all they have. This is a sisterhood that's supposed to support them and be there, and all of a sudden you're like, all right, it was nice knowing you.
Just throw you out.
For me, I'm good. I don't know about other people, and I think there needs to be something in place that kind of helps them to bridge the gap. Because if your husband dies, you remain a widow. You remain in it. So my mom's still in it, even though my dad's deceased. So I went with her this past June. We went to Pittsburgh. I went because I knew she couldn't go alone. And it was so good to see everybody.
Right.
But they were uncomfortable. They didn't know what to say because I think they think I'm bothered by it. I was bothered. I was a little hurt by the way things happened. I knew I would leave, but I didn't know it would happen the way it did. So I was a little hurt by that. So I go through these things and I experience these things, and I think people look at me because they say, well, only the strong survive, and oh, she's aggressive and assertive, and Gina has a strong personality, but Gina's human.
Right.
And so there are times I just kind of sit by myself and I say, God, why are you doing this? I know you're with me, and I know you feel like I can do this, but really, does it have to be all of this? So that's why I reach out to my ministry and do a lot, because I never know who's in the position that I'm in.
So I have a question. When you were talking about going to the church where your mom was going and she was being disrespected and things like that, I will be soon, coming up when we launch our ministry, at the end of the year, toward the end of the year, and I will be in that position. So, my husband and I, we have kind of like a disagreement with, I've learned, when you come to church, you leave everything in the car, if there was an argument or whatever, and you just keep going. But he didn't necessarily view it that way because he was saying, well, I think that's being fake. And I said, not necessarily, because if you come to church with a smile, even though you had a dragged out fight or fussing before you get there, you still, because we train, the the praise and worship leaders to do the same thing. The leaders in general, like if you had a bad morning or whatever, because we're coming to worship God, you have to leave all of that on the outside. So we had a little, kind of like a disagreement about that when it came to coming to church, putting a smile on your face, even though you're not necessarily feeling it. Do you feel that's being fake or?
No, because I'm
know.
gonna tell you why. I believe and I live this, and I have this scripture on my door, on my laptop, on my computer screen, on my bathroom door, on the mirror, on the refrigerator, and it's Colossians 3:23, which says, "Whatever you do, do it as unto the Lord and not unto man." I believe that.
Right.
The Lord gave me that scripture when I turned 40 years old. I saw it in a little contraption. Those things have those different cards you read every day. And I pulled it out that day, and I was like, what? I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
But sure enough, that's what helps me. And there have been numerous times that I had to make it work. Because I was in a place. I can remember one Sunday, I was so upset, and I cried through my whole sermon.
Yeah.
And the people thought I was in the spirit.
Right.
So I let them think that. But I got out of there quick. And they were checking, you okay? It's going to be okay. And people were talking to me. But I got one of my best sermons ever because I preached through that pain.
Right.
But I believe that we should keep people out of our business.
Okay.
Simply because it's generally temporary.
Right.
So somebody else who's got your back, they be like, what? You got those knuck if you buck friends who like, who said it? What? I don't.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's best sometimes to keep things as opposed to showing them. Now I wear stuff on my face. I know that. And people say, what? And I just be like, it's okay, she don't want to talk about it.
Okay.
But those are people who know me.
Right.
People be like, what's wrong? I know something wrong. Keep doing that. I don't think it's being fake. I think a lot of times we need to focus on what is my responsibility while I'm here. That accountability piece. This is what let me go and do this, because once you pull people in with what's going on, then you cause a whole nother, the atmosphere changes and everything. Then you miss what your assignment was, what God called you to do. So I think it's just a matter of doing what you do and leaving that behind.
So I remember when I was married to my ex-husband, and our relationship was tumultuous, and whatever. We would go through, have good days, bad days, and then we would come to church, we would argue in the car, or whatever, or be okay that after church we're in the car arguing or whatever. But people have said to us, when we had divorced, they couldn't believe it. Oh my God, I cannot believe that you and David, are getting a divorce or whatever, because they had their perception
Happens.
of us.
Yeah.
And when we would come to church, I had my 3 little girls, and we just one happy family. And one of the ladies, she's an evangelist, she's deceased now, and she saw me in the bathroom one day. She said, I just love you and your husband. She said, y'all are the cutest family ever. And she was encouraging me, and I was looking at this lady like, if you only really knew what we were actually going through in the relationship. But I smiled. I had my girls, they clean, we come into church, and so, and I know my daughters would say this, but Mama, I think, they would, one of them in general would feel like I have to have a certain persona, or what I am introducing to people. It is me, even though I am going through things, or was going through things in the relationship, I will always wear a smile. Number one, that was part of my personality.
Right.
And number two, you're not gonna necessarily see me sweat, because what good does that do? I'm coming in mad, angry, or whatever. What's wrong with you? Like you said, it does take the attention off of Christ.
Sure.
So maybe I was doing it and didn't know why I was doing it, but I do that now, like, because you have ups and downs.
Sure.
In relationships and things like that. I might not be feeling my best, but I pride myself on putting a smile on my face, because it's all about him, and really not, I don't want you to focus on me. So people have that different view.
And I don't think you were wrong, because I did the same thing. I was the praise team leader. And I had, like, my mom, and once she knew and my dad, what was going on, we were having problems, because I was always smiling.
Yeah.
And look, I loved my husband. I really did.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt that we're going to work this out. We're going to make this work. I'm going to make this work. But I'm not, because I was
Right.
divorced before.
Okay.
I didn't want to go through that, and I felt like the Lord put us together. I believe we could have had an awesome ministry. I just couldn't wait. I said, we're going to do this. And the Lord showed me this crowd and this platform. And I'm like, but Lord, what is that? What is that? What am I seeing? Because I don't play with the Lord, and I knew what he showed me was right. And my mother would say, how do you go up there and do praise and worship every Sunday like that? And you look like you really into it. I said, I look like. I said, baby, that is for the Lord. That's not for him. It's not for none of y'all. I said, but that's me, and that's what I owe to the Lord. And I'm telling you, it would help me. Or it would release me when I went on and sang and did what I had to do. And I would get a little backlash from it from time to time. Like, you were, you know. But I kept, when I tell you, I knew what I had to do, and I pressed through, praise your way through. That's what I did. And they were like, well, I don't know how you do it, and I don't, you know, and I'm like, well, you're not supposed to know. But I've always been the different one in my family who stands for something or fall for anything. So a lot of times I went against my mother and father and said, this is what I need to do. This is what God, my dad would say, oh, you're religious now. I said, well, whatever I call it spiritual, but I also call it right. But I don't want to, so I get that. But I tried to stay, I didn't do everything right.
Right.
That's what I don't want anybody to think. I did everything. I'm blemish free because I had my stuff too.
Right.
And I had to go to the Lord and ask for forgiveness. But when I realized that I had to get myself together and I want to see Jesus one day, and I certainly want to see my daddy, because he and I were like this.
Yeah.
And I said, the Bible says that we can see our loved ones who've gone on before us. Well, if I want to do that, that's what I have to do. So I started doing things differently. And that's the road I plan. I don't care if I walk by myself.
Right.
I know the Lord is with me. And I'm telling you, my sisters and I have discussions, and we argue. And I'm like, well, okay, well, all right.
So do you think that's when God had developed you spiritually, so now you look at things like maybe religion over spirituality versus spirituality, because a lot of people are religious, traditional, they're religious, and then when God started working on you, he was taking you higher with your relationship with him spiritually. They thought that you were doing something unorthodox, perhaps?
Probably so. And I do know that growth took place. One thing that the two things my ex-husband did for me and said to me that I will be forever grateful to him for. The first thing he recommended was that I go to counseling. And I was so glad that I did, because I didn't realize that I was hurt, and as a result hurting other people. That's first. The second thing he said to me, he said, Gina, you need to be truthful and be honest about your relationship with the Lord and what you're doing. I'm saying, what you telling me? I got offended at first. He said, you need to read, study, and move forward and let the Lord. He said, you don't know how the Lord will bless you, but first you got to be true to him. And that's where I developed religion versus relationship. So the relationship is the spirituality for me. The religion and all of that it's just something you do. It's putting $1 in the offering plate on Sunday. It has nothing to do with tithing. It has to do with, well, I'm going to church on Sunday because that's the day we go. Well, I'm going on Saturday because that's the Sabbath. Well, I'm going to dress up and go. Well, I'm going to do, all that. That's religion.
Right.
But, and you talk a certain way around certain people, but around other people you do something. But what is your relationship? Because when you got a relationship with Christ, you can't be shaken. Right. You can't be moved. You know what you want. You're sure about it, and you can move forward in that. And I'm probably one of the most transparent persons you'll ever meet. I don't mind what people think and what they say, because what I do know is when I can share my pain, my hurt, the things that I've come through, and then they see me now, and they say, oh, wait a minute, I want to do that too. Yeah, you can be there too. So it's very important for me to share. And that was something that my ex-husband didn't really want me to do. He didn't want me to share so much. He said it was too much and you don't need to say all of that. But for Gina, I did. But I had to be careful because I represented him. And I didn't want to be defiant, if you will. I understood what he was saying, but we're different. Right. And I realized we're almost too different to be together. Right. You know, opposites attract, but right. You know, and I wish him the best. He's still the pastor of the church.
Well, before you get into that, so just tell us how the whole separation and divorce happened. Like what happened or what led up to that?
Well, I think a lot of things happened in our relationship that got us to the point that we couldn't do it, and it was his decision. I can't say it wasn't my decision. When he made the decision and said it to me, it threw me. I was kind of, what? Okay. And I didn't have any fight in me, really, because I don't even think he knows what I was dealing with, what I was internalizing, things that were going on. And we made a verbal agreement, how things would go. And he said to me, do you think we can still work at the church? And I said, yeah. You sure? I said, yeah. Then we have a bonus daughter, his daughter, Taylor, who I love dearly. She graduated from high school, getting ready to go to Christopher Newport. And after we didn't tell her right away, because her birthday was coming and he wanted her to have a good birthday, and so did I. Once we decided that, I said, well, we need to tell the church. He said, no, we don't. It's none of their business. I said, we do. I'll decide that, because I'm the pastor. I backed off. And when the church, when he did mention it, I asked him specifically, could I be there? Because I was the assistant pastor, not just the first lady who sat on the second row with a big hat. I worked in the church. So my integrity said, you can't lie to these people, let them know. And we made it a while before he decided to tell them on his own without me. I was very disgruntled about that because they knew and I didn't know what they knew. And so they found out. Then people came to me, why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you? Well, I was trying to do what he recommended. He was still trying to keep things in order. So they found out, and the people that left the church, the people and people will say it was because of the pandemic. And I had decided I'm going to tell them. I'm going to tell them for me. And they shut the churches down before that Sunday. They shut everything down and we didn't go. I said, Lord, what was that? Well, what are you telling me? And the Lord told me just as clearly, be still. You be still. Don't you make him look bad. Don't you say anything don't you talk about him very clearly.
Yeah.
Don't do it. And I said, okay, God, whatever you say, you're a man that you should not lie. So I'm going to do what you say do. And you kept me in the midst of all that mess, and I know you'll keep me now. And so I kept it that way, and we went through, and we became divorced. Eventually, we found.
What was his reason for the wanting of it?
He said the Lord told him. And I said, okay, yeah, the Lord showed me that this just wasn't good. We can't be here together. And the one time I did ask, what is it? He said, for me to tell you wouldn't be good for you or for me. And that was it. We haven't had any more discussion about it. Have I wondered? Yes. Do I dwell on it? Absolutely not. Because what I will tell you is once that divorce was final, well, actually, once he moved out, I cannot explain the peace that I had in my life. Didn't even know it was missing.
Right.
The peace and the freedom that I feel now for ministry and for just doing what I want. And I often feel like the Lord withheld children from me. I had miscarriages.
Okay.
But the Lord withheld children because I think the Lord knew I wouldn't be able to do the things that I'm doing and move freely. And I love everybody else's children. I take everybody else's children. My sister has a daughter who's 7, who's my absolute love of my life. But I love children, but I also I love to sow into their lives and impart and speak over them. And you know, there's so many things that I think I probably could have been doing, but I was so busy. Am I doing this? Am I doing that? Because I felt like I was under a microscope, and people were watching, and I wanted to make sure this and that, and it just wasn't meant. It just didn't work, and I have no ill feelings toward him. Like I said, I wish him the best. I still love his family. You know, I do, and I thank the Lord that I'm able to be in that space.
How did forgiveness look for you? Was it a process? Was it a journey? Was it ugly? Was it pretty some days? How did it actually look for you?
Forgiveness was tough for me, and it was really tough for me because of, let me say, the most important things in life aren't things.
Okay.
I prefaced it with that because a lot of things left my house. They maybe shouldn't have left, but they left. I'll leave that like that. So I had some forgiveness that I needed to exercise, and I preach forgiveness all the time. And when I preach forgiveness to people, I talk about how the Bible says, though our sins be as scarlet, he'll wash them white as snow. And we know scarlet is red. And if you've ever gotten a red spot on anything, you know there's a little hint of pink or something that's left. It's like, I can't wear this anymore. But when God forgives us, and it's white, like snow, so where does that put my forgiveness?
Right.
How should I forgive people? How should I be willing to move forward? And how do I feel once I say, it's okay? Oh, I feel so free. So once I saw and felt that, I was like, oh, okay. Yes, I miss church. I miss going to the building. I miss being at that church because I grew up there with those people. I do. I will not lie. But it's a very difficult thing for me to do because I feel like I'm not wanted there. And I don't go. I used to say this thing about going where you're celebrated and not tolerated.
Yeah.
And I don't know. There's some people at the church still, they're very few, but there's some who I think would say, come on. And when I go, they're all really nice because I've gone a few times just to visit church, but I feel like a stranger. But my desire is to be at church. I don't want to join another church necessarily.
Right.
And the Lord hasn't even released me to do that.
Is this the church where your husband's passing away?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the church where I grew up. And a lot of the people that I grew up with, they aren't there. They all left. People have left. So I have service on first Sundays in my yard when it's warm outside. They named it the cul-de-sac of praise. I didn't. And they come and bring chairs.
Yeah.
There have been 80-some people there at a time. Yeah, they do. They come and bring chairs. And the 4th of July, we were scheduled to have a cookout. I have a gentleman who cooks for me, so I do hot dogs. So we didn't do it because it was so hot. It was supposed to rain. But I will do that again. But that's been a good space for me to do that.
You thinking about going to a building one day?
I have not considered a building.
You haven't.
People say it to me all the time. I've had a building offered to me
You did.
for free. Yeah, I have.
For free?
To come at 1 o'clock and do my service for free. They have service in the morning.
Okay.
And I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I honestly have prayed and asked the Lord. Because my daddy, I know, left this earth disgruntled with me because I wouldn't pastor, because that's what he called himself, laying it out. I wasn't even a pastor. He said, but the Lord told him I was going to preach. The Lord told him, and the Lord told me, he said, he wanted to put me in this spot. And I'm gonna set this up for you. And people told me, I've had people that are former members of the church. We wouldn't be in this situation if it wasn't for you. If you had only gone and pastored the church like your daddy told you to.
But you were married at that time?
Yeah.
Okay.
You need to do this. You gave it up because you let your husband. No, the Lord didn't call me to do that. And my husband and I followed him. And I've had people say all sorts of things to me because they still don't realize that I follow what the Lord says and not what they ain't got it, but I do.
Right.
So I've got that. Oh, we wouldn't be in the shape we're in now. We do that. They blame me. A lot of people. And I'm just serious. Like, you coming to me saying this for real. And I'm like, well, bless you. Bless you. I'm so sorry you feel that way, but whatever you don't, but you don't, no, don't ask me now. You've already told me.
Right.
So I have to kind of go through that and hear that from people. And I have people that ask me, come on, let's go back. Come on. I can't do it right now. I just can't.
Okay.
So, yeah, I visit other churches.
Okay.
My mother has left and she joined another church, her childhood church. She went back and she's in her world over there. But my youngest sister joined another church and she directs the youth choir and sings in the choir. And my other sister hasn't done anything yet. She hasn't changed her membership yet. She hasn't done anything, but we all miss church because we were in church. You hear me? My grandfather pastored. We go to church, go around the corner to the church where my mother was playing. Just my dad was a deacon.
Yeah.
So we went to 2 services every Sunday. We knew we were going to be, and that was my thing, and I miss it. But I tell people, during the pandemic, we realized that we are the church, not the building. So let's just keep doing ministry, even though it's not in a building.
So on here is saying, do you attend? So that's a no.
Yeah, I don't.
Well, you do
I have,
visit.
and I'll
But you have
probably
your
go
own
back.
ministry.
But I don't.
So you are a pastor.
Oh my
Of
goodness.
a church. And you say, I visit other churches. I'm just trying to wrap my head around it.
Oh my goodness.
I'm like, well, she said
Listen,
she goes to other, she visits, but you have a following.
I have a great following. So I do conversations with Lady G on Wednesday mornings at 7, on Sunday evenings at 6. If I'm not there, I'm 2 minutes late. They're texting me, we're arguing.
Right.
And then during the Lenten season, I do 40 things to give up for Lent.
Okay.
I'm a very stickler about not giving up fast food, sodas, candy, chocolate. Give up what you're not going to take back. Don't have that case of Coke sitting there waiting to drink it on Easter. Don't do that. You know, that irritates me. It always has. So I'm talking about, let's give up hatred.
Come on.
Gossip.
That's
lying.
it. Yeah.
Bitterness. Depression. That's what I do. I stay on that. And I say, let's give up these things. And I do every 40 days of that.
Okay.
And then in October, every October, I do 31 days of positive power. The Lord put that in my spirit when I turned 50. I believe I started doing that. That's when I kind of started doing it. And every once in a while I'll go on. I'm contemplating doing a Wednesday Bible study series.
Okay.
Kind of a worship on word on Wednesdays thing. The people have asked me to do more, but I don't want to over engage myself, but I do enjoy that, being on there and sharing with people. And so many people get so much out of it. And we do other things like outreach. We do school supplies in September.
Sounds like a church to me.
Yeah, and we do. And we do school supplies at the beginning of the year too, where children ran out, and we gave to the juvenile detention home, toiletries, and we do food. We'll do food, anything. I just love community service. So becoming a part of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated in April. Thank you. Becoming a part of that was just second nature for me because I love the work. I love the work. And people said, you're a preacher and you're joining a sorority. Absolutely. And I've had to answer that question.
Right.
Yeah, but you think it's about a t-shirt and the colors. I love red. Red's been my favorite color for life. So I don't wear it because I'm a Delta, but I do wear it because I'm a Delta. But I love the service. I love what's involved. And everything I can be a part of, I'm a part of it. I'm legacy. It goes through my family, through my sister, my mother, my aunts. everyone, we're all deltas, and we love the service that we provide. So I love what I do, and I've been doing this, sounds like a church, and I do all of this stuff. And I guess, you know, maybe I have to get the I out of it and come to grips with what's, and really close people have said to me, what are you doing? What exactly, what are you doing?
Right.
You have a cash app, people give, you know, you let them know what they gave at the end of the year. You give to ministries. What are you doing? What
Right.
exactly? A conference that's coming up in September. You know, I do this every year.
Right.
So they said, what are you doing exactly? Like, I'm just doing ministry. They said, oh, you just want to call it ministry, okay. So I encounter that just like you're doing. I encounter that all the time. I don't know, you know. And maybe, I don't know.
You just don't know.
I enjoy what I do. My mother will tell you this. She says I'm lazy. And she says that I don't want accountability. That's what my mother says.
So have you like just sat in your house and thought and said, well, I could have this person as my assistant, I can have this person as a missionary, I can have this person as a deacon. Have you ever thought about that? Just like when you're thinking your private time.
I have, but the only reason I've thought about it is because someone has put it in my spirit.
Okay.
Someone said, why don't you this? You started out with, you need an assistant. You're doing so much and you don't have anybody. And I was like, well, I have to pay them. They said, you know, somebody may just do it.
Yeah.
And out of the blue, a childhood friend who lives in Northern Virginia, she's a retired officer with the Army, I believe.
Right.
She just stepped up and started creating these things with GWC Ministries. Another friend of mine got a kid in his art class to make a GWC logo. And so I've got letterhead someone created for me in this, and I didn't pay anybody for anything. They don't ask for anything, but I'm thinking, well, I gotta compensate these people. No. I have a person who keeps track of my dates for me if I give them to her. I have a young lady on my live that just records. She's a secretary. She puts scriptures in the chat. I never asked her. These people just do things.
Because they believe in your ministry. They believe as their pastor. Because that's who you are. You are their pastor.
Oh my
You just don't want to
goodness.
hear, you just don't want to put that title on it or to hear it. What is it?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. You're doing the work.
That's it. And
You
my,
have the ministries.
yeah. And my therapist says the same thing. She really does. She says,
You think that comes from the traumatic experience?
I
of
think
everything?
I think it's from seeing my dad
I
go through
see.
so much. My father, I even saw my ex-husband go through a lot with people at church, because it came to a point that my dad was like, he didn't want him there. After he voted and encouraged people to, then they went against. And so I watched my husband go through that hurt also at his first church. Excuse me. And then at this church, so I was like, is this the way this goes? Because I don't want no parts of this.
Right.
So I think I never thought about that until you said it. It may be I'm suppressing some stuff, and I'm like, I'm going to go a little bit, but I'm not going all the way
You don't want to be totally
there.
committed to
I've had several churches to reach out to me to serve as their interim pastor, to even apply for pastor. And I literally started doing my resume. Then I wouldn't do it, because I knew as long as I didn't have a resume, there was nothing to submit. And so I just kind of like,
So
no.
you're playing mind games.
Yeah, I guess with myself, Lady Rhonda, I'm playing mind games.
You playing mind games.
Oh yeah, I think I found out some stuff here today. Isn't that something?
Look at God.
Yeah, I told you he has a
Won't he
wonderful
do
sense
it?
of humor. If you let him, he will.
Won't he do it?
I'm telling you, so.
So what does GWC stand for?
GWC Ministries started out standing for Gina Whitaker Cannon Ministries. As time progressed, I changed it.
Okay.
And I changed it after my separation divorce to Gina Whitaker Continues.
Oh.
And that's because I was doing ministry before.
Right.
I don't want to stop just
Right.
because of the divorce.
Uh-huh.
And so it's Gina Whitaker Continues. and I continue what I'm doing. That's funny to people when they hear it, but I mean it with every piece of my heart. I'm continuing to do what it is that God called me to do in the midst of things. And I have, another story for another time, because I dealt with a time of abuse in a relationship.
Okay.
And that's for another time. But I had to get through a lot of that. There's been a lot of stuff. It ain't just, like you said, we're not going to say church hurt or emotional and relationship. But as I said, or as I mentioned earlier, hurt is hurt.
Yes.
And when people are hurt, they need healing, or else they keep on passing the torch. You don't do that. You can't do that, because there's some people who aren't strong enough, and they keep taking it, and it just clings like lint in a lint trap in a dryer, that you can't just shake it off. You got to scrape it off. And when people are at that point, and I know that I'm still dealing with some things. I had a mental health day the other day with my girlfriends, and when I knew anything, we were just talking, and when I knew anything, I was tears rolling. They just started passing me tissue. I'm like, I'm sorry. They said, no, don't apologize.
Right.
Two of my closest friends.
Okay.
But I realized that there's some things I'm still hurt about, and that there are also some things I need to apologize for.
Okay.
Because I think I didn't realize, and I thought it that day, because I didn't realize maybe I've hurt some people, and I believe that God will allow us to go through some things. You need to do this because you did that. I need you to do this. Now you finished? All right, now come on, let me show you what I can do. I believe that.
You do.
I believe every time something happens, I'm like, what I do? Well, why you let me go? Why you I'm strong enough to go through this, but why? I go through that thought process. Right. And I believe that God does that, and I trust God. I haven't always been faithful. I haven't always trusted Him. I haven't always believed. But I have a whole different, my mindset is just so different, and it comes from peace and being at a place that I can just flow, whatever it is God wants. I don't have obligation. I take care of my mother. She's 87, and she said, it was just you and I for 6 years. Then your sisters came, she said, and here we are, because they have children. I don't. So she feels like we're there without our husbands. That's her thought process.
Okay.
So we kind of laugh, but she doesn't ask them to do anything. Gina, can you go? Gina, can you do this? Gina, are you able to? Gina, will you look at? And she'll ask my middle sister sometimes, but for the most part, she says, well, she has the children. I said, they're grown. You're in college. What do you? So, but there's nothing I wouldn't do for her, because our mother, she's shared with me that she stayed with my father because of us. So we could have our father in our lives, because she grew up without hers. So she thought, I would love for you to interview her. She has a story.
Okay.
But anyway, and she'll talk to you. You may have to take your show back over like me, because we talk. We have a talking spirit. But I learned, that's why I said I learned that perseverance from her. And I was so thankful to her. So I stayed into my first marriage. I was in for 12 years. Stayed in it. Knew that I probably should have. I said, my husband, my ex-husband and I now, I think we were married 9 years. But we separated in 2020. So it was 9 years before we were divorced.
Okay.
So, but I stay in and try to make it work. And, my husband kind of expressed to me, we're living as roommates, really. And he was right. But I didn't want to look at it that way.
Right.
But he was brave enough to come to me and say, let's don't do this. But I really, really thought we were going to be able to do that, still do ministry, but, so, and it is what it is.
So we talked about hurt and being hurt in the church. So for upcoming first ladies that are currently probably going through, what would you say to them?
My recommendation, first of all, is to remember, and because I had a very different situation because I'm the assistant pastor, there are several co-pastors in ministries now where the pastor is a minister and his wife is a minister. But you do have some situations where you're not, the wife is not a minister. But since there's so many, I'm going to speak on that. I think it's very important, first of all, to know your place. Don't allow people to come to you with anything about your husband, or to, can you tell your husband this? Can you? No. You schedule an appointment and talk to him. These are mistakes that I made.
Okay.
I'm going to be transparent about that. Do not allow them to say when you preach, oh, I wish you'd preach again. You were really good. So the implication is something negative about him.
Okay.
That don't allow any of that. I don't care what you feel. Be careful of being friends with people in the church and how close that friendship is. Who you allow to come into your home. Who you allow to be in your space. Who you choose to do things with. Because all of those things can be a burden on your marriage and cause what could have been a good thing to go crazy. Because people will get involved, not meaning to. Then you have some intentionality. But a lot of people will get involved just because they want to be close, because they look at it as a place of honor. I was the first lady. And they like that. You know, your armor bearer is to be somebody who is not your friend, but they've got your best interest at heart. You don't have to see them any other time, but they will go from broke for you. It can't be a person that's your friend, because your friend is gonna get mad as soon as something, and they'll get, so you can't do that. But you gotta be, the most important thing is to watch that friendship piece among the membership, because it'll come between the marriage. It will, and it'll cause problems, and it may not be intentional.
Right.
But you talk to your friends about so many things, and your husband doesn't want to know you discussing him with your friend, and they at the church and he preaching to them. You gotta be careful about things like
right. Oh, you did.
Right, and he's like, hey, and they like, hey, you don't want that.
Right.
They don't know, they can't handle it like you can cut it off on and off.
Right.
So you just gotta be careful and just be true to what your calling is, true to what you're supposed to be doing and serving in your capacity. I'd do it totally different if I had to do it all over again. However, I have no intent on getting married again, and I certainly don't want to marry a preacher.
Okay.
That's nothing against a preacher.
Right, I got it.
But I don't know. I shouldn't say that, but that is my feeling right now. That's my true feeling. Right now, I'm just trying to relocate Gina, and be on a path that I should go and do what I need to do. I've been a people pleaser all my life, and I'm finally to the point that I'm doing Gina. My sister Jackie has had to show me it's okay, do what you want to do. You don't have to please. And she has been my inspiration for a move I'm getting ready to make. I can't tell you.
Okay.
But when you see, you will know the move that I made. You will say, oh, everyone's going to be shocked. But yeah, within the next couple of weeks, there'll be something that will happen that they'll be like. But it's what I want to do. It's something I've wanted to do. And I made a decision to do it. And she's like, when I tell her I'm going to do it, she's like, she doesn't believe me. She doesn't believe me. My youngest sister might have a little more confidence in me, but my middle sister, she like, my brother would probably believe me. And then we have another sister also.
Okay.
And I think they may, but this sister that talked me into it, she's been my motivation. She doesn't believe me. I'm just have to show her better than I can tell her. And it's all about what my mother will think and my family will think. I'm always concerned about that.
Right.
That's been one of my downfalls. I've missed a whole lot of opportunities because of what I thought people would think. You know, people be like, I don't care. I never said that because I know I do.
Right.
So I'm getting through that. Thank you, Lord. I'm getting through it.
Well, so we're going to wrap it up, but before we do, so just tell us how we can reach you on social media, your social media platforms, what you have going on, talk about your Delta, or just tell us,
right now, I know people have been after me about doing a website.
Okay.
But again, I said, well, how much is that? So I had a young lady who designed a website for it, but it didn't last for so long. It was on Wix or something, whatever,
Uh-huh.
free site. But I really would like to have a website so that I would like to do podcasts, I would like to do blogs.
Okay.
When I write something long on Facebook, people are like, why did you write? You're a writer.
Okay.
And I know I'm a writer.
Right.
I love writing. That was never a problem in school, writing papers. I love writing and I love talking. But I got a book inside of me.
Okay.
But I believe that if my sister says she would be my ghostwriter. So if I
Okay.
record, she'll write. I have a journal that I will release next year called 30 Things I Learned in the Fire. And I was supposed to release that last year. Next year, I'm releasing it. I've got a book that will be called Bruised But Not Broken. And my sister's gonna help me and I'll get through that. So hopefully I'll be able to have some things that we'll have, once the website comes out, do some blogging, do some podcasts, do some
Okay.
things and be able to pull people in. And I'm looking to have, right now I'm just Gina Whitaker Cannon on Facebook. My page is open. A lot of people are my friends, a lot of people aren't. Because they can just see whatever they
Right.
want,
Uh-huh.
which opens me up to some stuff sometimes.
Right.
But, I handle that too.
Uh-huh.
But basically, that's it. I don't do Instagram.
Okay.
I have an Instagram page. I don't know how to operate it. I just do Facebook. I'm very, very plain right
So
now. But I'm
right.
going to,
Uh-huh.
I'm going to rise and do some other things.
Okay.
If I can stop that procrastinating spirit of mine. See, I told you I'm transparent. I tell you,
Right.
or I put it
know what
off
you're
in a
talking
minute.
about.
And I know there are things to do, and I've got people who are willing to help me. I just need to say I'm ready.
Okay.
So I would like to move forward and do some things. I'm going to give myself a goal.
Okay.
First of the year, I'll move forward and do some things, and really have enjoyed this experience, being here to talk to you. Having met you one day,
Yeah.
and we started talking like we've known each other for life. Well, I wonder if I could interview. Yeah, when? I'm ready. And I'm just thankful that you saw fit or saw that I was worth talking to
Absolutely.
and sharing. And I pray that, I didn't hurt anybody in the midst of this conversation, but this is a part of my healing. And my therapist says what she's noticed is the more I talk about things, regardless of how much healing takes place. So I have to talk about it. I hurt you, and it's not if I hurt you, it's not that.
Right.
I need to get it out, and maybe
Absolutely.
you don't realize what you did hurt me.
Right.
Maybe you don't realize, but I need to say it, and I feel better than I did coming here this morning already.
Look
Look, see? Yes, absolutely.
So we were talking before we started recording,
Uh-huh.
but we were just saying the Miss T. I want to give a shout out to Miss T.
Miss T, thank you.
I went to talk to her, and I was telling her about my podcast and things like that. She said, "You got to see Miss Gina." She said she's just such an extraordinary woman. She's in the gospel. She has a story and everything. So when I went to see her, she said, "Come on, let's go upstairs." And it was on Wednesday. I think she's here. So she brought me to your cubicle because she said, "Y'all go ahead and talk. I'm going back downstairs." And I talked to you for about an hour at your cubicle.
We did.
Found out we know some people.
Yeah.
Or whatever. It's a small world.
Small world.
And I'm just excited that you said yes. And I enjoyed you coming today and having you on the show. And you look absolutely stunning in the red.
Thank
And
you.
until next time, thank you so much for coming to It's a Love Thing.
Thank you so very much.